Hi, my name is Darj Dove, and today I will be presenting my research on substance abuse and risky academic decision-making in college students. So, a number of studies have been done on college drug use and drinking alcohol on campus and how they have a negative impact on academic performance. A college student's success might require them to abstain from behaviors that lead to immediate rewards, like drinking, in order to accomplish long-term goals like graduation or the development of their career. At this point, students might value the short-term reward over the long-term reward, so they would prefer drinking over trying to study, for example. And that is considered an economic decision-making problem where there is no correct answer, but a choice that's based on subjective preference. Imagine a scenario where you had the ability to choose $5 now versus having $5 tomorrow. How many people in the audience would choose $5 now? And how many people would choose $5 tomorrow? So in this case, I think it's obvious that most people would choose the $5 now. But now imagine a scenario where you could either receive $5 now or $10 a week from now. So how many people would choose the $5 now? And how many people would choose $10 a week from now? At this point, the person is putting the $10 in a week and the $5 now on a common scale. And this reasoning happens in the prefrontal cortex of the brain. And economic theory proposes that the valuing of different rewards have a point where they meet, where they are subjectively equivalent. So this research study was designed to determine how much a college student's GPA is worth to them in units of a drug, or which is alcohol or illicit drugs. Specifically, we want to characterize substance abuse and academic performance at the same time in the same participant, and we want to see how participants perceive risk in their grades in units of a drug. So while conducting my literature review, I found that college student alcohol and drug use has been a major public health concern on college campuses for years and can result in a range of negative consequences from critical health risks to decreased academic performance. Excessive drug use is also related to financial, health, and safety problems, and research proves that students who enter college who are already using drugs may develop worse habits because they get adapted to the different lifestyle and they have a misinterpretation of how college students actually use drugs and how they drink. Research also shows that college students who drink are more likely to drop out from school, and half of all young adults who go to college will not graduate because they often attend college for social rather than academic reasons. Alcohol is one of the most common substances abused on a college campus, and marijuana is the most commonly abused illicit substance in young adults. While all of this research shows negative effects on drug use, this study, in particular, focuses on how college students make the trade-off between academic performance and drug use. So for this research, the participants in the study included William Patterson University college students, and they were recruited through social media like Facebook, through verbal advertisement, and email. Participants were required to know how to operate a computer, keyboard and mouse, and bring corrective eyewear if needed, so this would result in normal vision for all participants. There were 16 females that participated and 5 males, whose age ranges were from 18 to 23 years of age. And all participants in the study were seniors, which means they were in their final year of classes at William Patterson. The program for this experiment was designed through coding in JS Psych, and each participant responses were anonymous throughout the entirety of the study. Participants were sat in a quiet, stimulus-free environment, so they would be completely focused on the experiment, and the program contained a total of 150 choices between the use of alcohol or an illicit drug or the option of studying, and the participant was asked to choose between both options. A set of instructions were displayed on the screen that explained each choice the participant would make would hypothetically result in an increase or decrease in GPA, and the participants were instructed to place their left index finger on the F key on the keyboard and their right index finger on the J key of the keyboard, and the options were presented to them, and including the choice of the substance or studying, the probability of an increase or decrease in GPA, and the numerical value of the change in GPA. And the change in GPA was not certain. There was a 10, 25, 50, 75, or 90% probability that there would be a change in GPA. This represented risky decision making, and the options varied from trial to trial. So this is a sample screen from the program, and this image shows that choosing whiskey would result in a 10% chance that the participant's GPA would increase by 0.2%. This one, on the other hand, shows choosing the option of studying would result in a 25% chance that there will be a 0.1 increase in GPA. A complete blue bar would represent a 100% chance that there will be an increase or decrease in GPA, and the participant was required to make choices like these for 150 trials. So the various questions in the program allowed for the evaluation of the decision made by each participant, and the participant would choose from either studying or for a certain increase or decrease in GPA, or to take one of the following substances, which were beer, wine, whiskey, marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, and heroin. And by varying the probability levels, we aimed at uncovering the participants' value of their GPA relative to alcohol or an illicit drug. The participants' choices and reaction times were recorded for each trial using the JS Psych program. So for the hypothesis for this experiment, we hypothesized that the participants will be more likely to make the risky choice of choosing to take a substance knowing that there would be a potentially high probability that the drug would result in an increase in GPA. So when analyzing our results, the independent variable was choosing a drug or the option of studying, and the dependent variable was a change in GPA. Using standardized beta coefficient to compare each value, we were able to identify which substance a college student is more susceptible to use instead of choosing the option of studying. The higher the absolute value of the beta coefficient, the stronger its effects. So this over here, this figure shows the regression of the drug and choice made, and the table shows the beta coefficient values for all the drug options presented to the students. According to the data collected, ecstasy was determined to be the drug that students would not trade off for an increase or decrease in GPA, while wine was shown to be the drug that most students were susceptible to choose instead of studying. This means that college students would trade ecstasy for studying regardless of change in GPA, and they would trade studying for wine regardless of the increase or decrease in GPA. This figure shows the relationship between task value and decision made by the student, and this figure compares probability and payoff. So the higher the payoff, the more likely the participants were to choose the drug instead of choosing to study. And using logistic regression, we determined that the regression for drug choices was beta equals 0.19 plus or minus 0.07, t equals 2921, and p equals 2.89. And after analyzing reaction times, we determined that participants took a longer amount of time to consider the trade-off between beer and wine and studying, and were making much quicker decisions when it came to substances like cocaine and ecstasy. So the longest reaction time was for beer, and the shortest was for ecstasy. And similarly, the relationship between task value and reaction time was also examined, and this figure shows that the higher the payoff, the more likely the participant is to choose to take the drug rather than studying. So two main patterns were identified during the study. Several students preferred to take the drug while they were aware that there was a greater likelihood that they would receive an increase in GPA, and some students mainly opted out of using any drug in general, no matter how much it affected their GPA. So we were able to identify the correlation between how college students valued the drug option minus the study option versus the proportion of drug being chosen. So in this first picture, or these first two pictures, we see the positive correlation where the participants are more likely to choose the drug when there is a higher chance of a GPA increase. Now, the figure on the left shows the payoff matters, but the participant is willing to make alternate choices based on other factors, while the graph on the right shows a negative correlation where the payoff does not affect how the participant makes their decision. And this graph shows that participants refuse to take the drug regardless of what the payoff would be. So after participants finished the study, they made a few comments. The drugs that were presented to them in the experiment were drugs that they had never come into contact before, and they would never actually consider taking them, but with the potential increase in GPA, they would actually consider taking the substance if the scenario was true. Some participants were surprised by seeing drugs like heroin, ecstasy, and cocaine because they would not even know where to access them. Some participants were more likely to drink beer or wine rather than choose to study because it was their form of stress relief from school. And a few participants stated that they do not use any drug in general, and that way they would never actually choose that option in the entirety of the experiment. The three main limitations that I had during the study were demographic factors, participant active participation, and technological constraints. It was hard to recruit people to perform or be a part of the study. The target population was aimed to represent the diverse population of William-Patterson, which included participants of different ages and different grade levels, but this research only consisted of seniors, and the diversity was not accurately depicting the university's demographics. And also, most participants were nursing majors, which creates a bias in this study. But having participants of different grades, especially students younger than 21, would have been beneficial for this study because at that point, every substance would have been illegal for them, which would have taken the study in a different direction. The participation of the participants, it was a limitation because many participants would zone out through the lengthy trials because there were 150 trials, so some of them were not giving their full attention to the study. They would start zoning out and taking breaks throughout the rest of the later trials. And lastly, the study was limited to being accessed only in two ways, which affected how many people were willing to participate because the study was originally set up in a lab, but many participants were not willing to relocate to the lab, so I had to download it on my laptop, and that way people started participating more actively. So the study proved that college students are more likely to make their decision based off of the payoff. The higher the payoff, the more likely students are to choose the drug option, regardless of whether it's wine or ecstasy. For future study, having a larger population of participants would be beneficial and contribute more to the study, and focusing the study on college students younger than 21 years of age would lead this study in a different direction because at that point it would be illegal for the students. Anyone have any questions?